Welcome to Longevity Industries' presentation of the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. Brought to you today by the Precision Metal Forming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation. I am your host, Dean Phillips. With me today, I am so very proud to have our fantastic Internet of Things, or Industrial Internet of Things, guest. Looking forward to the conference coming up here from the PMA. I have with me Rose of Sharon DeVos. She is the founder and CEO of IIoT Automating Solutions. Welcome, Rose of Sharon.
Here today, this is a subject that I get excited about, talking about how the Internet of Things, and specifically the industrial Internet of Things, is changing manufacturing today.
Excellent. And it's great to have you here. I know you have a tremendous background in the IIoT world. So tell me right off the bat, what is your big takeaway for 5 years from now?
Well, what I see is a fundamental shift in how employees on the shop floor are going to be interacting with technology and how it's going to shape decision-making. Companies are going to shift from looking at reports with information to everything becoming real-time. Real-time information coming from connected equipment to make their decisions. I think we're going to see the word lean, which has kind of been popularized. It's going to take on a new meaning because the response time to problems is going to be reduced down to just minutes. Process changes, decisions that need to be made will be reduced from taking weeks of meetings to just hours to make a process decision change. I think manufacturers of all sizes are going to become much more nimble because they're going to become much more connected and integrated, both the machines and the humans that are operating those machines.
Wow. I think that will be a very exciting change for a lot of people. It's something that has been challenging manufacturers for quite some time. Tell me a little bit, how did you get involved in the IIoT world?
Well, I've been working in manufacturing for a long time. Between the years 2000 to 2018, I worked for a steel company, a steel distributor. I worked for a CNC machining company. And during that time, I saw the value of technology, and I kept asking for new technologies, and then began, because I asked for it, I was implementing it. And then when I would put something new in, I would say, but this needs to connect to that. I always was the person who was the visionary, who could get up above the trees and see the forest and saying, wait a minute, why aren't we connecting everything together? And I would ask the question, what if when calls come in to our company, someone presses 1, the system recognizes the area code, and then it goes to the right inside salesperson who's their personalized person for that territory. What if the screen just pops up in Salesforce in the CRM and shows them information about that customer? And then what if that CRM has data from the ERP system in it? They can see all of the orders and what's going on. What if all of this just automatically pops up in front of an inside sales representative, for example? That was kind of where I first got started, was on the sales. So what if questions, how do we connect everything? And then in the last year, in 2018, actually, I had the unfortunate situation of I lost 2 jobs within 1 year. And that had never happened to me. I've always been a long-time employee, so it was quite a shocker. And I realized that the value I was bringing to each of these companies was I did implementations and connecting of technology everywhere I went. I was always putting in something new and connecting it to something, connecting that and connecting that. And really what got me excited was this concept of the equipment. Why is our equipment not talking into the rest of our systems? What are we missing here? I had just implemented a huge ERP system not long before, and the ERP system was doing amazing things as far as collecting data that we as humans were entering, but it wasn't telling us what the machines were saying. And I saw a real niche. We need to know what the machines are saying, and we need to know what the humans are saying. And so I started IIoT Automating Solutions so that I could bring the that vision of connectivity and ideas and ways to show other companies, all small to mid-sized companies, how to do this and how to stay kicking in business when the big companies are already really beginning to have been doing this for a while. And I just didn't want to see the small to mid-sized manufacturer, go out of business, lose out because they're not doing it.
Right. And it's tough to compete in that world from the standpoint of a small company because they think, I can't do this. I'm not XYZ company. I don't have the kind of resources to do this. Or the other attitude is, well, I only have, a dozen machines.
Right. Does it really matter? I can see that they're running right now. Might be, what someone is thinking. But the fact is it does matter. And what's really cool is that the Internet of Things technology has followed a very similar path to how ERP technology kind of evolved. I'm sure those who've been in manufacturing for a long time remember the days when ERP kind of first came out. It was sort of a custom program that a lot of larger companies in particular put together in-house. Do you remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
It was this big kind of clunky program. And then over time, the software developers came along and they began to create packages that smaller companies were able to implement. And then it got more and more niche so that implementing an ERP, when we hear the failure rates of ERP, it was really famous at one time to say, over half of them fail. These ERPs are so big and clumsy, nobody can do it. You're risking your whole career if you're going to try to implement an ERP. I've heard these things before. Right?
Yes.
and it was really big and scary. What happened is over time it evolved, and now there are really fantastic ERP solutions that are much more plug and play and have incorporated best practices into the manufacturing process. So ERP evolved, and now it's no longer big and scary. And quite frankly, those failure rates, that's just not the case with ERP anymore.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. That's ERP. So I'm going to bring that around to the Internet of Things, right? So what's cool with the Internet of Things is now what we're seeing is that same shift from big company, big expensive in-house solution that they put together. And now you've got, it's developed where the sensors are inexpensive. There's software solutions now, and it has become manageable for the small to mid-sized company. And it's followed that same path as the ERP did.
Yeah. I think you hit on one of the most important aspects now with the industrial Internet of Things is the cost has come down to where it's manageable for anybody, whether it's sensors. If you look at the cost of things like even small microprocessors and these little small packages of Arduino and Raspberry Pi, and this technology has come down to such a manageable. I don't want to say it's completely irrelevant, but it is very small and manageable for small companies to get into this kind of package. Yes.
It is. It is far more reasonable than they realize. And there are companies that are very good at partnering and helping small companies, smaller manufacturers to do this. And it's within reach now for everyone. And it's not only within reach, but, you talk about where you're going to be from 5 years. I venture to say you're going to be out of business in 5 years if you have not put in these types of systems where you're able to really tell what's going on and squeeze out your costs. This real-time information is just really key, I think, to the future of manufacturing. We've already seen trends to far more individualized, personalized manufacturing of things, right? Everything is about turn it around fast, make it custom, and make it small quantities, and make it faster. And the only way that's really possible, quite frankly, is when you're dealing with real-time information from all your systems.
Right. It's funny that you say that. I had the pleasure of visiting a company quite a few years back, and they had the early idea of putting time meters, so hour, minute, seconds, on all of their equipment. And then their idea was they were going to set somebody to walk around to each machine and write down those times for whether the machine was running or not running. And I told them, I said, you do realize that this is somewhat irrelevant information, because if you don't know if that machine was supposed to be running or not running, or you don't have somebody to gather and populate this information, it's just gathering information to gather information. And I would venture to say that was a problem a lot of people had when big data started to come into the picture. And where are we now with that aspect of being able to process that big data now?
Well, we have a lot of things converging that are really making this easier than ever before. I like to bring it down to the user interface. So technology has become so ubiquitous that everyone has these powerful computers in their pockets every day. And developers have now created ways to make it easy to slice and dice data to get real actionable results. We're at the point now where we expect to, think about what we want to look at, and then we just touch something and it goes into a deeper dive. Or, a classic machine monitoring solution is going to let you look at things. What time frame do I want to look at? What machines do I want to look at? It could be what part number do I want to look at? And these are all, to someone who's on a shop floor, these are all logical things to look at, right? These make sense. What was my productivity over this particular time frame for this particular part? Did it make a difference if I was on this machine or if I was on that machine? A supervisor says, is third shift running better or first shift running better? Why is that? People have very logical questions about what it is that they're trying to accomplish, and all they need is a logical interface where they can just keep touching, slicing, and dicing to get down to see valuable information. And they don't even think about how all that information is getting into the back end of it.
Right.
The beauty of this big data is that it's accurate. It's so much more accurate than a human pushing buttons and saying, "Oh yeah, I just started this machine." That was great. That's great with ERP. Hey, I just started this machine, and it was a huge step up from writing it down on a piece of paper. But it's not going to be sufficient to take us into the future. We've got to have the machine saying, "Yes, I just started," and it needs to tell the ERP system, "Yes, I just started." This is where it needs to go.
Right. Yeah, that comparative data is probably one of the biggest aspects of where you can look at this versus this and say, here's the tangible results. You can see it, you can feel it and touch it. You can put a dollar value on it. And that's one area that I think from upper level management, it doesn't have that humanistic interpretation of things. Well, this means this. And people will put a spin on it to believe whatever they want to believe. Well, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way those, whatever choice of phrase you want to look at. But when you have data-driven information, it's hard to dispute that.
It is. It really levels the playing field as far as an organization is concerned. Very often you have operators on the shop floor who have a gut feeling. They know what's going on because they live and breathe this machine. They know one machine isn't quite as efficient as another machine, for example. But if they don't have data, they may be quiet or they may complain, but their complaints aren't leading to real action to make things better, basically. And when they have real data, it empowers the operators on the shop floor to say, "See this? I've been telling you for years, this machine has got a problem with it. It's vibrating," or whatever the case may be. There's something wrong here. And they already knew it, but now they have data to substantiate what they already knew. And so when operators begin to see this as a communication tool, as a way to communicate with management of what's really going on, they love to be empowered. And this is really where it's going to have to come from. All manufacturing at the very basic end, the very basic foundation, it is the operators on the shop floor making the parts. And they need the best tools in their hands in order to do the best job possible in making things, whatever those may be. And I think that is, a big shift. We have to be thinking what works for the operator. And then that's going to drive up through all the other systems, all the way up to financials at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a great point. Tell me, what is the biggest challenge you run into? Is it more that they don't have the technology or the desire to pursue the technology, or is it a cultural change that you see the biggest problem with?
It certainly is a cultural change. This is a huge shift. This is as big, almost as big, I would say, as going from no ERP to an ERP system. And I understand the intimidation factor. But I think that when done right, when you involve the operators and supervisors from the beginning and help them to see this as a tool for them to get what they've been looking for, to better themselves, that you can, as I was just describing, when they begin to see that tool is going to benefit them, then you can begin that change in the way things are working. I feel like so many shops, I see employees evaluated based on somebody's opinion of somebody else, right? Have you ever been in a shop where you're like, they say, well, I just don't think so-and-so's doing that great of a job, but they don't know why. And they just have this negative opinion of someone. And this gut feeling drives manufacturing, it seems like. And I guess some shops have supervisors that have better gut feelings than others. And maybe that's why they were more successful, But if you ask me, I'd much rather be judged by my results than by somebody's gut feeling of whether they like me or not, or they think I'm doing a good job or not.
Yeah, and that happens too often, though, that we rely on people's feelings or the way that they perceive things to be, and it may not be the root cause of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you touched on that point there with how they perceive their other employees and people that are working there. One of the things that I think technology can offer a great insight into is the training of our workforce and determine, well, maybe this person needs to be trained better, but maybe we didn't do, we often rely on employee A to train B and B to train C, which then leads to some diminishment within that training process. And that creates some holes and gaps that we have within our workforce. Do you see the IIoT world being able to provide better insight into that?
I do. For one thing is that this is very intuitive technology. This is the training piece of it. You got to make it easy, right? You got to make it highly visual, very easy, very intuitive, so that the training curve isn't the way that it was. I think manufacturing by nature has thought that training needs to be, you do this, you click here, you do this, you do this, you do this. And it's all very sequential, very, very specific in terms of a process that you do. But when it comes to looking at data, we don't look at it that way. It's not a sequential step-by-step kind of process in the same manner, right? And there has to be a much more intuitive feel to get the good information to make things really work. But on the training end of things, I do want to mention there are always bright spots in every shop. You always notice this one machine is just amazing. This part always runs great. This employee is fantastic, right? There are these bright spots. And what we want to do is be able to focus on the bright spots and be able to reproduce that, right? How do we reproduce it? Well, first we have to identify it with data. Then we can dig in and we can then begin to focus on reproducing the best and brightest and fastest ways of doing things. And that's one very effective way to manage change and to actually see the problems begin to drop off. Rather than focusing on the problems, let's focus on our successes. So,
yeah, and I think that can lead to better a better appreciation and a better understanding of what really are the challenges that we're faced with. And I know that systems like Metalform EDU and other training systems can really make a big difference in how we go about that approach. Now, it used to be we used to hand out training materials for the employees and not really be able to have a tangible result of seeing that improvement. I think now with using any type of the IIoT world, we can start to really look at and see, okay, training this person on die changeover has led to this improvement, XYZ, and really put some numbers behind those improvements, which every company wants. They want to be able to say, we spent our money in the right place.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Are you, do you get many calls for that to, hey, we're planning to do this. We want you to come in and prove that we did spend our money in the right place or we didn't?
You would think there would be more discussion on that. I think that a lot of manufacturers at this point can't even envision where this is going to take them yet. They are starting with, I'd like to just start seeing my uptime and downtime on my equipment. Just start. Like, what is the equipment going to tell me without even a human interface, right? They don't even know what questions they're going to be addressing. And we have to often lay out for them the possibilities as far as where the data may lead them. Because the data takes every company in different directions. But there are general areas where, you tend to see the improvements. I mean, the downtime data is sort of the very first place. People don't know why they're down as much as they're down. They think they're very efficient and they're really not. And the data doesn't lie.
Right. Yeah. I coming from that world, I see the shock when people realize their real efficiency rates, their OEE. They are blown away.
Yes, exactly. They're blown away. They think, oh, we're 85% efficiency. Right. Yeah. No, you're not.
I know.
And
it's surprising to them that, and you're right, that's where they think most companies are. And there's very few companies. I mean, that is world class when you're up in the 80s, especially in the stamping world. If you're up in the 80s, you're doing fantastic. Most of them are really usually, if you're at 50, that's actually probably pretty good for an improvement to go from the 30% you've been at up to 50%. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're doing great if they're at 50.
Yeah.
It is interesting. And the thing is they're always shocked when they find out what is reducing their efficiency, because a lot of these things are really low-hanging fruit. That's reducing their efficiency. They're easily correctable and e-stop. I mean, there's small things that could be into a program or someone's making an adjustment to a machine, that you didn't know they were doing. and you don't discover these things. So, until you actually look at the data. So it's a bit of an adventure. You just don't know where it's going to lead you.
Sure. So you're going to be speaking at the PMA's IoT conference coming up in June. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll be speaking there. I'm very excited about this. This conference has got a powerhouse of speakers that are coming to speak on IoT, on sensors, on ERP change management, I saw, and all these things that are affected by the IoT world. So the conference is in Cleveland, Ohio, June 24th and 25th. And people can go to the website. It's at www.metalformingmagazine.com/IoT. That's metalformingmagazine.com/IoT. So I certainly encourage everyone who is exploring this or wants to learn more to register and come see, learn, and talk with other manufacturers who are already starting the journey.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing you speak at that conference. I'm thinking that this is going to be a very good opportunity for companies that are struggling or exploring the idea of how they can improve. This is a great place to do it. So,
well, yes, definitely.
Tell me what other points you think people can gain from coming to the conference, and your speech is on what specifically?
So I am going to be focusing on IoT on the shop floor, a bit on this change management piece, and helping the shop floor and the supervisors to work together and to really embrace this technology so that it'll have the most benefit to the organization. So that's kind of where I'm going to be focused, but there's going to be a whole lot to learn. And I will say, I think the most important thing for anyone to take away is that you need a digital transformation strategy. And if you don't have a strategy and a plan over the next 5 years of how you're going to be, the types of things you're going to be implementing, and how you're going to be addressing change management, and kind of realize that your business does need to fundamentally transform over time, embracing technology, that this is a good place to get those ideas and begin to write it out, what it is that you need to be doing.
Right. That's fantastic. Well, Rosa Sharon, thank you so much for being here. We are right up against the end of our time here. We are glad that you did come by here, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again in the near future. Everybody, this has been the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast, brought to you by Longevity Industries and the Precision Metal Forming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation. Thank you, everybody. Rosa Sharon, where can people find out more about you?
All right, you can go to my website. It's www.iiotautomating.com. That's iiotautomating.com. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.